Folks, hell may have just frozen over because in the aftermath of the Trump administration's egregious, embarrassing, dangerous national security breach, a number of prominent right-wingers and MAGA sympathizers, including Fox News host Tomi Lahren and Piers Morgan, of all people, are publicly condemning the Trump administration for their incompetence, and we have to talk about it. But before we do, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends, I saw this article on Mediaite and I was delighted, okay? Shockingly egregious fuck up. Right-wing media torches Trump team over war plans group chat. So before we get into the specifics, as you know, because we've been covering it nonstop, no apologies about that. This is the biggest national security breach in modern American history. And quite frankly, the Trump administration and MAGA Republicans should pay a political price for it. We found out that the Atlantic's editor-in-chief, Jeffrey Goldberg, was added to a Signal messaging group chat, which included Vice President J.D. Vance, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, State Secretary Marco Rubio, National Security Advisor Michael Waltz, Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard, the CIA Director, etc., and so forth, discussing highly sensitive and likely classified military information about strikes against Houthi rebels in Yemen, okay? It's been the predominant scandal. Well, we're actually starting to see some pushback, some public pushback, from prominent right-wingers. As Mediaite reports, a number of right-wing media figures have voiced their concern over the Trump administration's use of a Signal group chat and inadvertent adding of the Atlantic's Jeffrey Goldberg to coordinate a strike on Houthi rebels in Yemen earlier this month. Indeed, a lot of them have gone a lot further than that in their indictments of National Security Advisor Mike Waltz, Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, and the other participants in the chat, especially after Goldberg torpedoed the claim that no classified information was in the chat by publishing its contents Wednesday morning, which we discussed in a previous video. Piers Morgan, for example, characterized the episode as a shocking, egregious fuck-up and urged Donald Trump to roll some heads. So let's talk about Piers Morgan. As you know, we pick on him a lot on this channel. A lot of love there. I mean, listen, I think Piers Morgan at his best is actually a pretty good interviewer, which is why I'm so frustrated when he engages in his whataboutism and false equivalence, particularly with regards to American politics. But it's for that reason that I think that Piers Morgan could actually do some good when he's at his best, that I really want to emphasize this. So Piers Morgan says they were war plans, and it was, obviously, classified material. This whole Signalgate scandal is a shockingly egregious fuck-up that could have had catastrophic repercussions for U.S. forces in combat on that operation. Donald Trump should roll some heads. He goes on to say, after quote tweeting an excerpt, a screenshot of the Signal chat detailing these war plans, he says, if you don't consider this to be classified info about imminent war plans, it may be that you're too partisan to recognize the truth when it slaps you around your tribal chops. If this had happened on Biden's watch, Republicans would have rightly gone berserk. Now, I also pointed out, I quote tweeted, he didn't respond, that if it indeed had happened on President Biden's watch, Piers Morgan would also be upset, and there would have been 3 or 4 Piers Morgan Uncensored episodes dedicated to this very topic. And at the time of recording, Piers Morgan has not recorded a single one about this particular topic under Trump, even though it's been in the public eye for more than 48 hours. Will he do it next week? I don't know. But it does seem to be that even now, with this criticism, he seems to be grading Trump on a curve. He also quote tweeted Dave Portnoy, the founder of Barstool Sports, a prominent culture warrior and Trump supporter who goes on a 6-minute tear. We'll probably cover that in a separate video. And he echoes it spot on. Okay, so there's Piers Morgan. I'm going to give him not all his flowers, but some flowers for publicly, repeatedly acknowledging the incompetence and dishonesty of the Trump administration on this, and we'll see where he goes from there. So, quote, if you give the launch times for the attack, the general mission set, including strikes on individuals, and the type of military units involved, is clearly classified. Why, most importantly? Because the Houthis have air defense units and the F-18s have 1 to 2 people in them, argued the Washington Examiner's Tom Rogan. And I will note, as it was also noted in today's House Intelligence Committee hearing, the Houthis have the ability to shoot down F-18. So it's not like that particular fighter jet is impervious to Houthi counterfire or counterattacks. Okay, people were and would have been endangered had this information been sent to anybody else besides Jeffrey Goldberg. Quote, baffling. We've entered overclassification during previous political fights in this general realm. Here, setting aside the somewhat tedious war plans parsing, Information about the nature and exact timing of military strikes seems necessarily and highly classified. No, wrote Fox News' Guy Benson. I didn't see this one from Andrew McCarthy, right? Fox News lawyer. This one definitely would be worth looking into. March 25th. So this was yesterday. Particularly after reading Mark's post, I'm trying to wrap my head around how Trump administration officials, including the intel chiefs who testified before the Senate today, could maintain with a straight face that what they discussed on Signal was not classified information, or to the extent that the Espionage Act could be relevant, national defense information. And so he goes on to lay out some of the law on this. I'm curious what his final conclusion is. Moreover, as we discussed a number of times in connection with the Mar-a-Lago documents case, in which then-candidate Trump claimed he had declassified the documents he maintained at his estate, declassification is not a defense to an Espionage Act allegation because the statute criminalizes the mishandling of information respecting the national defense, which is not necessarily classified, or at least physically marked as classified. I'll note as a sidebar that in all my videos attacking the so-called classified documents case against Trump, which, by the way, was 100% legitimate, they had him dead to rights, and it is only by the grace, as far as Trump is concerned, of a Trump appointee, Aileen Cannon, that case was shuttered, that even if Trump had declassified those documents, for exactly the reasons McCarthy lays out here, it wouldn't have mattered because he was still in unlawful possession of sensitive national defense information when he was obligated to return them. So the classification thing was a canard in the first place. He concludes, obviously, we'll have to see how this unfolds, including what specifically was included in the Signal chats, as opposed to mere descriptions of the kind of information discussed. But I find it very hard to believe that the information we're talking about was not classified, probably at a very high level, and it certainly seems to have been information respecting the national defense. So Andy McCarthy is on this. Stephen Hayes, the old attack plans are not war plans defense, making fun of Trump Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt because she's like, aha! It was initially billed as war plans, but even the Atlantic concedes that they weren't war plans because in the subsequent article they said attack plans. And attack and war are two different words. You know, war has 3 letters, attack has 6 letters, and it's like 2 different things, right? They can't mean the same thing. So he's making fun of her appropriately for that. The New York Post editorial board warned Trump and his underlings that, quote, you can only play the diminish, deny, delay game so many times, arguing that the American people need to know Trump is still fighting for them, not lying to them. Ooh. This is interesting. Also from yesterday, I didn't see this late night. Team Trump will pay a price for whistling past the Signal group chat fiasco. And again, this was prior to the text dump from earlier today. It looks like Team Trump has decided to try to whistle right past the Operation Overshare fiasco and may well put it off, but not cost-free. Trump is standing up for National Security Advisor Mike Waltz after he, or maybe his staff, mistakenly added Atlantic editor Jeffrey Goldberg to a group chat on Signal, into which Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth later dropped sensitive details of the anti-Houthi bombing campaign. The stunning security breach had, quote, no impact at all, the press announced Tuesday morning, and, quote, Michael Walls has learned a lesson. What lesson is that? Hegseth, meanwhile, opted for denial. Nobody is texting war plans. Actually, Pete, Goldberg has the screenshots to prove they were, and the National Security Council has authenticated them. And again, this was before today's bombshell update in which more of those screenshots were provided. Never mind the desperate efforts of social media warriors to pretend they're fake, or even sadder, 7-dimensional chess fans who argued that the leak was somehow deliberate. The White House, and Waltz especially, handed the left a loaded bazooka. Now, of all times, as the administration faces major fights on everything from the border to campus Jew hate to the economy, we get it. Trump went through too many national security advisors in his first term. He still has the team he wants, and the shakeup would bring his own costs right now. But you can only play the diminish, deny, delay game so many times before it becomes your new brand. Look, Trump was elected in good part because Americans were sick to death of the last administration's endless cavalcade of lame, easily disproved lies. Yet we get that stepping up to own failures is hard, but it just got that much harder for Americans to trust the administration on national security issues going forward. All right, so even the New York Post is laying into it. Interesting. And a whole host of National Review writers have condemned the Trump administration over both the sin and the attempt to explain it away, and indeed they have. I haven't been able to read all of them, but the ones I have are truly, truly good. Quote, President Trump should demand Pete Hegseth's resignation today, wrote executive editor Mark Wright on Monday. Senior writer Noah Rothman urged the administration to, quote, just take the L and move on. Staff writer Jeffrey Blair called it, quote, uniquely inexcusable blunder, and contributing editor and Fox News contributor Andy McCarthy wondered how Trump administration officials could mount their defense of their actions, quote, with a straight face. And again, this was, I mean, as the new revelations were just incoming. So I'm excited to see what we'll see in the future. I'll also point out again, Tomi Lahren here, Fox News host, an Outkick, I think, host as well. She says, trying to wordsmith the hell out of this signal debacle is making it worse. It was bad, and I'm honestly getting sick of the whataboutisms from my own side. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. Admit the F up and move on. By the way, I dislike Tomi Lahren, dislike her opinions, but I actually do agree with this. What is good for the goose is good for the gander, and you need to be consistent. If you're going to ream the Biden administration or the Obama administration or Democrats for what you perceive to be national security failures, or, for example, Hillary Clinton's emails, then we reserve every right to do it to you guys, especially when you do something like this, which I would argue is objectively far worse than the Hillary's email scandal. So I like the fact that she's taking it on the chin and saying, listen, let's just admit it and move on. That's actually kind of admirable. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how long this persists, because the thing is, you will occasionally get MAGA Republicans, even Piers Morgan occasionally, to criticize Donald Trump. But the thing is, again, there's that implicit grading on a curve. If they condemn it, they would condemn it much stronger, even if all the facts remained exactly the same. You just changed the name. It's a muted response in compared to how they would have reacted if it had been a Democrat, or a specific Democrat, President Obama, President Biden, Vice President Harris, and also how much mileage they'll get out of it. So again, Piers Morgan, who is a right-winger, even though he says he's not, I would argue because he presents himself as a nonpartisan journalist, he has an obligation to treat this exactly the same. So if, let's say, hypothetically, under President Obama, President Biden, Piers Morgan would have dedicated 3 episodes of Piers Morgan Uncensored to this scandal, then I would argue he's morally obligated to do exactly the same thing under these circumstances. But I don't think that he will. It actually remains to be seen, again, at the time of recording, if he'll upload a video or a panel about this at all, because his instinct is to grade Trump on a curve. Having said that, we are seeing Piers Morgan, Tomi Lahren, and so many others actually condemn the Trump administration for their incompetence, and we should celebrate that, encourage it, and exploit it for our own purposes, just as they would if the shoe was on the other foot. In the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.